Today we will continue to discuss one more problem on the topic, and then we can move ahead to the next concept, which is electric flux. Right? So last class, quick recap of what we discussed was, first we discussed electric field due to an infinite line charge distribution. That is, if the charge is distributed along a single line extending up to infinity, that is minus infinity to plus infinity, at any point away from this line of charge, what is the electric field? That is what we discussed in the last class. So we arrived at a result which is based on the integration method. So it's not easy, I'm telling you. Coulomb's law application is, that is why somewhat difficult. Right. So today we'll discuss what is called Gauss law also. Now once you understand Gauss law and once we discuss Gauss law, you will understand that how easy it is to get the same electric fields for some cases using Gauss law. So that will be much easier compared to application of Coulomb's law. Right. For this case we derived some result. It is better if you memorize this result, because deriving every time is not easy, and there will be direct questions on this based on this expression. So the final expressions for these cases, if you can collect them and tabulate them, make a table out of it, that will be easy for you. Right. So basically this is for the infinite. Then from there we can apply certain conditions to get at the for a finite wire. That is, finite wire has a definite length compared to infinite one. So infinite, it is somewhat easier, the expression is that is lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught into y. Whereas for the finite wire, because of the angles involved, right, we are getting a slightly more complicated looking expression, but if you think about it, we arrived at this particular result by previous derivation only. So in the previous derivation there was a step where we can break while applying the limit. So while applying that limit there, instead of minus infinity to plus infinity, we applied in terms of theta minus pi by 2 and plus pi by 2, right? So using those two limits we were able to arrive at a result. Suppose if you don't change the limit and retain the x variable and try to apply the limit minus infinity to plus infinity, then we can express sine theta in terms of x and y, and therefore directly apply the limits minus infinity to plus infinity, and thereby arrive at the result for a finite wire. Again, we can arrive at the same result using the direct substitution for sine thetas also. So either way we can get the same result, either if you substitute for sine thetas, or if you directly substitute for for this dx by x square plus y square expression, either way you will get the same result. So this is for a straight wire only. From there we move to the next case, which is a circular ring of charge. Now what is the electric field at a point along the axis of this circular ring? Axis is a point that is passing perpendicular to the plane of the circular ring, okay, and it is passing through the center of the ring, right? Okay, then that also we derived, and we arrived at expression, and here we can assume the case that the distance a becomes 0 to get the center result at the center. That also one can do actually. So if you apply that, then you will get it in terms of lambda a by 2 pi epsilon naught 2 epsilon naught r. That is the result we will get. So that is obvious, by just applying for 0 we can get the electric field at the center of this ring. But we didn't do that. We wanted to do the approximation that far away from the ring what will happen. Far away from the ring, that is a is too large compared to r, so this ring will appear like a point charge. Point charge means it is direct application of Coulomb's law. So there we were able to directly do r going to 0 approximation, and then we arrived at the expression for that also, where we get directly the expression that we would have gotten for Coulomb's law if you directly apply for a point charge, that is kq by a square. That was the expression we got. Right, then we move to the next case, which was a circular disc. Now ring means that the center is gap, there is a gap there. But for disc, entire surface is charged. So here we cannot use line charge, here we have to use surface charge. So surface charge density is sigma. So basically we defined three, right? Lambda, sigma and rho. Line charge, surface charge and volume charge. So here surface means the entire surface has some charge. It could be positive charge, it could be negative charge, but the surface charge density is number of charges, that is charge, how much charge is there per unit area on the surface. So it is Q by A, right? Then we actually wanted to integrate over to get the entire surface, so we selected a ring around the center, concentric ring, and that ring area we defined, and then we integrated that small area so that we got the entire area, the charge in the entire area. That is how we arrived at the total charge. There also the final expression is sigma by 2 epsilon naught into 1 minus x divided by square root of x square plus r square. Here there is something interesting. Again, here also we can do the same approximations, though I have not here explicitly done that. You can try that actually. See, I will just tell orally. Far away from this circular disk, very far away if you go, the disk will also appear like a point charge, just like how we did for ring. In that case, the x is too large compared to r. So x is very, very greater than r. If you do that condition, you get, see, x is too greater than r. This is a condition because your disk far away from it, it will appear like a small point charge, very far away. So x is too much larger than this radius of this r. Under this condition, if you do this expression for this, see the expression, E is equal to sigma by 2 epsilon naught multiplied by 1 minus x divided by square root of x square plus r square. This is the result we arrived at. So here if you compare this denominator here, x is too large compared to r square, x is too large compared to r, so x square will be much larger compared to r square. In that condition, you can ignore r square. If you ignore r square, x square only will be there, and that is in the square root. If you take it out of the square root, it will be x. Numerator there is an x and x will cancel, so it is going to be actually 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0. So in that approximation, what we are doing is, this term is going to go into 0. The whole thing is that is electric field far away, you cannot see. That is the approximation we can do. Right. The next problem is electric field at the center of a semicircular ring. So here what we have is, we have only half the ring. So we may think, what is this? Full ring is whatever electric field we got in the previous problem. This is the expression for full ring. So we can get half of it for half ring. That should be the electric field. Some of you may think like that, but it is not true. Half ring is a very different thing, very different problem compared to full ring. Because there we assume that any opposite segment that you choose there, the electric field components will cancel accordingly. So if you choose a component, a portion element here, the opposite element also will contribute to the electric field. So the directions cancellation will occur along the vertical direction here. The horizontal components will add. This is how we did the full ring. But half ring, it is a somewhat different story. We cannot do that way. Right. So now what is the question here? What is the electric field due to a charged semicircular ring at the origin, that is kept at the origin? So the origin, let us call this as this is the origin or the center point of the ring. So what is the electric field at this point due to the charge in the continuous charge in this ring? So we have to do this. So you can see this. The charge that is present in this ring is called plus Q. That is the total charge present in the entire ring. Now we can select any segment of the ring, one small portion with the dq charge we are taking, and we are seeing that at the center the electric field will be pointing down like this, diagonally. So that is DE, direction of DE. Now that will have two components, DEX and DEY. But then opposite side, again you can take a small piece, and that also will point to the right diagonally down. So there will be horizontal component and vertical component for that also. Therefore horizontal components will cancel and only vertical components will add. So the DEX components will cancel. only DEY components will remain for this ring. So the DEY is the small electric field due to a segment of the ring having a charge dq. Therefore, the electric field due to that is DEY is equal to k into dq divided by a square, which is the distance, because the radius of the semicircular ring is taken to be small a. So it is a square is the distance from the segment to the point O, which is the center of the semicircular ring, and that multiplied by the sine theta component, because if you decide that there is an angle here theta from the place where you select the segment, that angle is theta, so sine theta is the vertical component. So that sine theta is there. Now you can integrate over the entire half of the ring, that is semicircle of the ring, to get it. Now what will change if you select different segments along the semicircle? If you select different segments along the semicircle, theta is a variable. So here I select, I will have another theta. Left side I select, I will have another theta. Left side another segment is a different theta. Like the theta will vary, and theta is measured with respect to the positive x-axis, which is pointing towards the right side. That is the positive direction of the x-axis. Right. So basically, the charge is going to vary with theta. So dq by d theta, if you do, you will get q by pi. Why? Because in a small segment, charge is dq. The angle for that small segment, if you draw, it is like arc of the circle. That is, in this semicircle, you want a field, so you are selecting a small segment. That segment has some extension, so it is creating an angle at the center. The end points of the segment will create an angle at the center. This angle we call d theta. The charge in that segment is dq. So for a small angle small segment dq of charge dq, angle is d theta. So entire semicircle has an angle from here. If you start positive x-axis right side, the angle is theta. So if you start from here, theta is 0 horizontal. When it goes here, theta is 180, complete anti-clockwise sweep. If you do, the angle is pi, that is 180 degrees, pi radians. So the total charge q by pi must be equal to this. Right. So the total charge is q, total angle is pi. A small charge is dq, small angle is d theta. This is a ratio comparison we are doing here. Therefore, we can write the small charge dq as a function of theta, that is q by pi times d theta. Q by pi times d theta will be our dq. So in that original dEy, we have to substitute that. So we are going and substituting for dq as q by pi. Again, sin theta is already there, d theta comes. So k is there constant, divided by pi a square is there. So if you take the constant kq by pi a square outside, all you have to do is now just integrate sin theta d theta between the limits 0 to pi, because theta varies from 0 to pi. Sorry. So if you do sin theta integration, you will get a minus cos theta. Right. So if you apply the limits, upper limit is pi, so minus cos pi, which is minus of minus 1, minus cos 0, that is plus, so plus cos 0. So minus of minus 1 is 1, plus cos 0 is 1, so 1 plus 1 is 2. So basically our result is electric field is E is equal to 2kq divided by pi a squared, where a is the radius of the semicircular ring. So this is another result that you may have to remember if they are, because many problems generally they try this only, semicircular ring. So it is important. This result you have to recollect. Right. Suppose of course you want to express the same in terms of the lambda. Why lambda? Because semicircle has a linear charge, right? Total charge is q, total length is pi r. So you can discuss a lambda for that. So if you do that, then you can say that the electric field will become 4k lambda by a. So this expression you don't have to remember, but the previous one if you can remember as a result, then you can always substitute q and in terms of lambda and get it. Right. So that is another application for calculation of electric field for a continuous charge distribution. Next, today we will move to new concept called electric flux, because earlier we discussed what is called electric lines of force. So we basically have the idea that around a charge, one can imagine some lines which are basically directions in which another charge will move. So basically what we have is let us say a positive charge. Okay, stuck. So basically So basically what we have is a positive charge, and we know some lines of force are coming out of the positive charge radially. So this direction is called radial direction. So it is pointing equally in all directions away from the charge for a positive charge. So these directions arrows are basically some directions which tells us if I keep a test charge there, of course positive test charge, then this is the direction in which the positive test charge will move because of the force on the charge. That means there is an electric field surrounding this charge. That electric field is E, and this electric field will cause a force which is called Lorentz force, which is nothing but the charge Q times the electric field E. This is what we understood when we discussed the concept of lines of force. And for negative charge, we discussed that the lines or arrows will point inside of the charge. Sorry, radially, it should be radially inside. This is how you can picturize that. Now, what is the meaning of this radial? Actually, this diagram is not very accurate. See, radial means at any instant there should not be any angle. Tangent of the circle, if you draw, it should be perpendicular. That is what is radial. Because radius, if you draw from the center of a circle, where it cuts the circumference of the circle, the angle is 90 degrees. Right? That is what we mean by radial direction. So radial outward, this is outward for a positive charge. This is inward for a negative charge. This is what we discussed. So that time I also mentioned that. So if you put again a negative positive charge test charge here, that will be attracted to the negative charge. Therefore the arrow is inside. Here it is a repulsion, so arrow is outside. These are the things we understood. And then we studied some basic properties of these lines of force. That is, for a charge of Q, if you represent by 4 lines of force, for a charge of 2Q, you have to draw 8 lines. So it is just a representation. Drawing is your wish. You can decide to represent Q with 8 and then 2Q with 16. That is up to you. But this proportionality should be maintained, because lines of force number, that is a number of lines of force, is basically an indication of the strength of the electric field. So we know only this much so far. So very close to the charge, electric field is high. That means a number of lines is high. Far away, electric field will reduce, because E is reducing with the distance as 1 by r square. So when you go far away from the charge, the electric field will reduce. Number of lines also will reduce. Now you may ask the question, sir, same number of lines are coming out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So whether I draw a circle and measure the electric field here, or I go far away, I am actually having same number only, sir. Same 7 lines are coming out anyway. So where is number of lines is not changing with electric field then? No, it is actually number of lines per unit area. So it is called number density. So sphere area you have to divide. So the basic trick is 4 pi r square. Radius of the sphere is r. The surface area of the sphere is 4 pi r square. So you have to divide number per unit area, number density, or whatever you want to call this. This number density of flux lines. This is called density of flux lines, or density of lines of force. So far we have used the word lines of force. So now flux is nothing different from this. Electric flux means it is same, exactly same. Electric flux tells us that how much how many lines, let us say, or what is the density of lines that are coming out of a charge. That is called electric flux. So it is basically an indication of the strength of the electric field. That is what we are going to study. So it will tell exactly how to calculate electric field from electric flux. So the whole concept of electric flux is introduced again to measure the strength of the electric field. And we should measure, or we should calculate the electric field much in a simpler way. For that we have to study what is called Gauss law. Before studying Gauss law, therefore we have to first understand what is electric flux. So our whole attempt is now going to be understanding how much lines of force, how many lines of force are coming out, what is the flow, because it is flowing outward or inward. Lines of force, when I say, and the arrow when I put like that, it is like something is flowing from the charge outside. So what is the flow? This flow from a charge is called electric flux. So some water is flowing, something like that is flowing, you have to imagine. So electric flux is therefore nothing but the rate of flow of electric field through a given area. So it is the rate of flow of electric field through a given. So we should not ask actually whether therefore the field is flowing or what. The field is not flowing. Suppose you have a tank, let us say. The tank is full of water, but you have not switched off the motor. So further water is being added to the tank. Now this excess water will flow. Now when you are seeing from the ground, tank is overhead tank is above you, you will see the water is flowing out of the tank. You will not see whether the tank is full or not, because you are below the tank, but you know that water is flowing out of the tank. That is an indication that the tank must be full. Similarly, when something is flowing out of a charge, that is an indication that there is a charge inside. Something similar to water being inside the tank and water flowing out when it is full. You can imagine something like that. Electric flux is something like that. So electric flux is an indication that something is flowing out of the charge, but it is actually not the electric field, but you know that there is electric field inside, because something like water is full, that is why tank is overflowing. Here flux is flowing out of the charge because electric field is present there due to the charge. That is how we can understand the concept of electric flux. So electric flux is therefore directly proportional to the number of electric field lines. What is this electric field lines? It is nothing but lines of force, whatever we discussed so far. So number of field lines going through a virtual surface. What is this virtual surface? Actually there is no surface there. See, I already told you. What you already have is only a charge. Charge is a definite physical entity. Now around the charge you are creating a surface, imaginary surface to cover the charge. There is actually nothing like surface there, right? Charge is present, it's a physical entity. An electron is a physical entity. An electron has a charge. So charge is a very much physical quantity. But surrounding this charge, you can draw a surface to measure how many lines are coming out of that charge. So the number of lines that are coming out of a charge indicates how much charge is inside. So if there is a Q charge, let us say you are measuring 8 lines of force coming out. Suppose if the charge is doubled, the charge becomes 2Q, then you can measure 16 lines. That is how flux will indicate how much charge is inside. Therefore, flux is not only an indication of how much charge, it is also therefore an indication of how much electric field strength is there in that region. This is what we can understand from the concept of flux. So the basic surface that we are talking about here is not a real surface, it is a virtual surface. You are imagining that at that particular distance you are drawing some spherical surface. It need not be a sphere. Again, we are going to see that you don't have to cover a charge with only a spherical surface. The surface can be of any shape, irregular shape also. So simply what I am telling is, you can cover the charge with any kind of surface. Same flux you can measure. See, only thing, integration will become difficult. You have a charge, you can cover it with a perfect spherical surface, let us say, or you can cover it with any irregular shaped surface also. Only the number of lines are not going to change. The same lines are going to be emitted by the charge depending on the magnitude of the charge. That is how we can understand this concept. Right. So, I can define the quantity for a uniform electric field E, the flux of E, that is flux suffix E, flux symbol is phi. So I am using symbol phi for flux. Phi is used for angles also generally, but for in electrostatics, phi is also used for flux. Symbol for flux, electric flux, because later we will study magnetic flux also. Of course, there also we can use phi of B. So here we are using phi E. Magnetic flux is B. Symbol for magnetic field is B. So we'll use phi B there. Okay, for the time being we don't have to bother about magnetism. We are still in electrostatics only. So it is flux, electric flux. The symbol is electric flux is phi of E. So this phi of E is equal to electric field dot A. What is this A here? Area of the surface you are using to cover the charge. That is A. Now you can see that something interesting is here. Area we all know is a scalar generally. Right? Area is number. 4 meter square, 10 meter square, 8 meter square, like that. Generally so far we have used area only as a scalar. But here I have put a vector symbol on top of A. What is the meaning of that? We have to see. Because we know that E dot A is a dot product of two vectors. Electric field is a vector, we already know it. Dot area is A. So E dot dA is a dot product of two vectors, which is equal to EA cos theta. Dot product of two vectors and the angle theta between the two vectors. So cos of that angle is the dot product. So EA cos theta. Now why area is a vector? So any surface, for example, that you are using to cover any surface you can use anywhere randomly, the flux coming out, at that point there will be an angle. So how to know that angle? Let us say there is a surface like this. Electric flux is coming out. Now electric flux, when it comes out, the direction of the electric flux is same as the direction of the electric field E. That is the direction in which electric field is pointing at that point. Now you have to draw a normal to the surface at that point. At that point you have to draw a normal to the surface. Let us call this n vector. Now this is the direction of the E vector. Now there is an angle between these two, that is, let us call that as theta. Now wherever you have drawn normal, there is a small area you can consider. That area, let us call that as dA. Therefore, depending on the angle theta between the electric field and this normal vector n vector to the surface where dA, the flux will vary. That is, if you count a small area, take a small area on the surface, whatever surface you are using, and try to measure the number of lines going through that. If you want to really get the flux from the electric field, flux is E dot dA. That means you are trying to take a projection of the electric field vector E vector on the surface normal. So n vector is nothing but a normal vector to the surface at that point. So normal vector to the virtual surface. So normal vector at that point. Therefore this n vector attaches with this dA scalar. So it is a dA scalar along the normal vector direction becomes a dA vector. That is how the area vector becomes a vector. So that whenever in physics area is used as a vector, we call that areal vector. So as such, area is scalar. We don't bother about any direction for area in general sense. But in electric field and magnetic field and all, when we use such virtual surfaces, in order to find the exact amount of the quantity flux, we have to take dot product of electric field with another vector only, that is normal to the surface at that point, which is called as area vector A. So therefore, flux is nothing but a dot product of two vectors, electric field vector and area vector A. So the total flux whenever we measure, therefore we have to take dot product between these two, and therefore this normal direction is always, so because whenever I say a surface and I ask you what is the normal, generally we will say outward only, but another possibility also is there inward also there can be a normal to a surface. So for electric flux concept, the n vector is always, you have to remember this very clearly, it is outward normal to the surface. Please remember this, it's very, very, very important. Otherwise in many problems you will get signed wrong. It is outward normal to the surface at that point. That gives the direction of the areal vector A vector. Right. So therefore, here we can see that therefore the flux is defined as a dot product of electric field multiplied by the aerial vector A. Therefore, it is Ea cos theta. Right. So here we can see some electric field is pointing from left to right. There are a few things that we have to remember about flux when we talk about flux. Now here you see the area of the two circles on the left and right in the first row, they are the same. But in this case, the first case, there are only 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, going from left to right through the area. Area is perpendicular in this case to the surface. So if you measure flux here, some indication of the 3 lines, you will get some number. The next diagram, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and the area is same area. So the same area, 2 different number of lines are passing through this area. So flux is therefore directly proportional to the density of the flow, that is how many lines are flowing through the surface. So flux in this case is less, and in the right side flux is more, because more lines are passing through the same area. So it is proportional to the density of the flow. That's what we can conclude. The next row, you can see that the area in the left side is tilted. It is tilted with respect to the direction of the flux flow. On the right diagram, it is directly perpendicular. The area is perpendicular, normally is parallel. Because I put another arrow in the small arrow. All the arrows are red color, one arrow is there in the black color. That arrow tells me that that is a normal direction to the surface, that is the direction of the aerial vector A. So if the normal and electric field are parallel, flux will be full, because Ea cos theta, theta is 0. When theta is 0, cos is 1, cos theta is 1, cos 0 is 1. So Ea, flux is directly Ea. For any other angle, theta will be greater than 0, cos theta will be less than 1, so therefore the flux will be different. So flux is angle dependent. That is what you have to remember. Flux is always Ea cos theta, so angle dependent. Theta is 0, flux is maximum, theta is maximum, flux is minimum 0. So therefore here, we have a surface that is at an angle theta with respect to the direction of the electric field or direction of the flux lines. Therefore flux in the left case is less than the flux in the right side case. So flux varies by how the boundary faces the direction of flow. Boundary of what? Boundary of the area. Next case, you see, flux also depends on the area that is enclosed. It's because your surface is imaginary. You are constructing a surface to measure the flux. So you can take a larger circle or a smaller circle. Therefore, if you take a smaller circle, flux will be less only. If you take a larger circle, more lines will be included, so flux will be more. So flux is proportional to the area within the boundary. So these are some of the important points or properties that you have to remember about flux when you do the problems. So if I say d phi E is a small flux, that is, it is associated with a small area dA, then for the entire area to calculate the flux, I have to do again integration. So the total flux is therefore phi suffix E, which is equal to double integral of E dot dA. What is double integral here? Double integral is a surface integral, symbol for surface integral. So in mathematics, I already mentioned also 3 types of integral are possible. First is line integral. Line integral. We have done this line integral, right? For linear charge, we have done that. That is an example of line integral. Lambda is the linear charge, so dq is lambda into dl. So in integral we will do only one line is enough to represent a line integral. Symbol for integration, only one symbol is used. Next we can have double integral. What is that? Surface integral. The symbol for that is like this. Two integral symbols are used. Now the example for that also we have done. What is that? Integral dq when it is equal to integral sigma into dA. There we did not use the symbol because every time using double is not easy, but it is assumed that it is a surface integral. So this is a line integral, this is a surface integral. Third is volume integral. Volume integral. There we can use three integral symbols for over a volume. This also we have done. This is for dq is equal to rho into t tau. This is for the volume. So these are examples for line integral, surface integral and volume integral. Here flux is, we are covering the charge with a surface and trying to measure the lines that are coming out of the surface to measure the electric field. Therefore here it is a surface integral. Okay, right. That is why here the symbol double integral is used. But in problems you don't have to every time use double integral. It is assumed that it is surface integral, so you can just remove one symbol and put only one and still do the integration. Right. So strict mathematical notation is just a double integral, but in physics when we do, we don't every time put double integral, we put only single integral. It is assumed that it is dA, so it is anyway understood that it is a surface integration. So I already also mentioned that the area vector is always taken as outward normal to the surface. You have to remember that. So if it is inward, that is if the electric field is coming inward of the surface and the normal is outside, then when you are measuring flux from the outside, the angle is anti-parallel lines. The normal to the surface and the electric field are now anti-parallel. In the original case they are parallel, so theta is 0, flux will be maximum. When they are anti-parallel, theta becomes 180. So you will get minus 1 for cos theta. Cos 180 is minus 1. So flux therefore will be negative there. Phi is therefore minus E dot A. So when we say phi is EA cos theta can go from 0 to 180. When it is 0, maximum flux. When it is 180, it is minimum minus EA. Right. So now we can introduce what is called Gauss's law. Right. So basically it is also called as Gauss's flux theorem. It is named after a scientist, Gauss. Just like a Coulomb's law, he also wanted to give a law for electric field. It's a much simpler law actually, and more general also, because it is natural. Coulomb's law is somewhat more complicated. We know it, we have to do integration and all. This is very simple technique. It is like a powerful tool to get the thing done. To measure the electric field. So what is the statement of the law? The net outward normal electric flux. Now we know what is outward normal. Net means total. So the net outward normal electric flux through any closed surface. What is this closed surface? It is the virtual surface that we are constructing. So the net outward normal electric flux through any closed surface is proportional to the total electric charge enclosed within that closed surface. What is the meaning of this? Suppose there is what is the meaning? I will just tell very simply, because otherwise Gauss law will think it is something very difficult. No. Suppose there is a charge. You want to measure the electric field due to the charge. All you have to do is cover this charge with some surface, measure the flux that is coming out of the surface. The flux that is coming out is an indication of the strength of the electric field E. This is the whole statement of Gauss law. Okay, so the net outward normal electric flux. Normal electric flux, why it is called normal electric flux? It is normal to the surface at every point. Outward normal. So the net outward normal electric flux that is coming through any closed surface, because you have covered the charge, that will be proportional to the total electric charge present inside, because it is an indication of the not just the strength of the electric field but also the charge that is present inside. This is a statement of Gauss's law. Of course, when we say it, we should say Gauss's law, but people say Gauss law, but it is Gauss's law. Its name itself is Gauss. Right. So the law you can write therefore as electric flux. Already we have written what is electric flux. Electric flux is double integral E dot dA. Here what is the Gauss law statement tells us, this electric flux is equal to the total charge enclosed inside. So double integral E dot dA is equal to the charge enclosed, Q enclosed. Of course the constant as proportionality is there, that is epsilon naught. Again, whatever epsilon naught we had in Coulomb's law, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, that epsilon naught comes here also, absolute permittivity. So, double integral E dot dA on the left side is an indication of the flux phi. Right side, therefore, it is equal to electric flux is equal to the total charge enclosed. So, inside, what is the charge of that surface? That is Q enclosed. So, when you cover a charge with a surface and you measure the flux, you are measuring the electric field. That is the conclusion one can give based on the Gauss's law. So, that electric field will be depending on the strength of the charge inside. The strength of the electric field will depend on the amount of charge present inside. Therefore, the flux also will depend on the charge present inside. So, for a charge Q enclosed, the flux is E dot dA. So, this is a single relationship and this is what is called as Gauss's law. So, E dot dA is equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. We have to remember this as such. Everywhere problems and all, we will be using this one. So, this is the expression for the statement of Gauss's law. Therefore, one single relation connecting all the three we can directly write and remember always that way. That is, the flux is nothing but surface integral, of course, of E dot dA, which is nothing but charge enclosed. You can use capital Q or small q, doesn't matter, divided by epsilon naught. Therefore, flux also is equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. As flux originally was defined as this. Then this flux is equal to this also. This is statement of Gauss law. Therefore, these two are equal. This is the conclusion one can give. So, whether you want to calculate the flux or whether you want to calculate the electric field, therefore, all you have to know is how much charge is inside the surface. Because E epsilon naught is anyway a constant. You can always add it, divide it. So, what is important is therefore, what is the charge present inside an imaginary virtual surface? If you know that, you know the electric field and the electric flux. That is the whole idea of Gauss's law. So, basically this means that if E is assumed constant over a surface area dA, then by knowing the charge enclosed on that surface, it is possible to measure or calculate the electric field. So, the surface area A totally encloses the charge, because if it's a small area dA you are taking and integrating, you are getting the whole area capital A. So, the surface area A is totally enclosing the charge and hence the electric field can be measured based on just the enclosed charge. So, whatever relationship we wrote now, it is connected. So, now we can do an example problem for a simple case, that is for a charge, small charge plus 50 microcoulomb. So, what is the electric flux through a sphere of radius 4 meter? That is, the surface, imaginary surface that is constructed is 4 meter in radius. That's a spherical surface. So, what will be the electric flux through such a spherical surface of radius 4 meter if it contains a charge of plus 50 microcoulomb inside? This is A. Again, second case in that is, if it is minus 50 microcoulomb, what will be the flux? So, first we can do for plus 50, from there we can extend for minus 50, not a big problem. So, charge at the center of that imaginary surface sphere of radius 4 meter is, let us call this plus charge, that is positive charge, that is 50 microcoulomb value. The flux is, therefore, we know that it is E into A. So, generally E into A. Right. Now, electric field is E. We can write later what it is. The area is spherical area of radius R. That is, therefore, total area, enclosing area is 4 pi R square. That is the surface area of a sphere. So, electric field into 4 pi R square, therefore, is equal to the flux. Electric field alone for a point charge, we know, using Coulomb's law we can write that. What is that? Electric field is equal to K into Q square. If the charge is Q, K into Q square by the R square, that is capital R here. Q is 50 microcoulomb, so we can substitute it also. So, phi is therefore equal to electric field into area. If you put KQ divided by R square, multiply that by area 4 pi R square and R square will cancel. Effectively, you are getting 4 pi KQ. K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. And therefore, this 4 pi and 4 pi also will cancel. Effectively, you are getting Q by epsilon naught is phi. So this is in a way the problem itself. What we have done here is we have derived Gauss law, because earlier we gave the statement only E dot A is Q enclosed by epsilon naught, and phi is E dot A, therefore phi is Q by epsilon naught we wrote. So for a point charge we are able to derive it. Phi is equal to Q by epsilon naught. Now that we have got Q by epsilon naught, all we have to do is to calculate electric flux. We have to do Q by epsilon naught. Q is given as 50 microcoulomb, so 50 into 10 power minus 6 coulomb divided by epsilon naught value. Since we are using only 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught in all problems, you will more easily remember 9 into 10 power 9 from Coulomb's law. But we have to always also remember this 8.85 into 10 power minus 12. That is for absolute permittivity of free space or vacuum. That value, if you remember, it is better. So if you substitute that value, you will get 5.65 into 10 power 6. The unit for flux we can write different units, because from Newton's law also you can write units from Coulomb's law also, but I am writing here voltmeter. Voltmeter is one such unit, because in terms of electric field also I told it is volt per meter. Flux can be defined therefore as electric field into area, right? So it is volt per meter into meter square, so it will become voltmeter. So I am writing voltmeter here, but you will see in some other problems some other units also, right? So if the charge is positive, then the flux flows outward. So for positive charge, already I discussed, arrows are pointing out, that means flux is flowing outward. For a negative charge, the flux is flowing inward, the arrows are pointing inside. So for 50 microcoulomb positive charge, we have calculated the flux to be this much. So if the charge at the center of, suppose, is negative instead of positive, that is minus 50 microcoulomb, then the magnitude of the fluxes will be same only, but the direction, that is how the flux is flowing, is inward. That is the difference between the cases A and B in this problem, because charge is same. So flux magnitude will not change, direction will be opposite. That is a conclusion we can give for that. Right. Here there is another problem based on this flux. See this. Calculate the electric flux through a circular area of 3 meter radius. So here there is a flat surface, circular surface. The radius is given as 3 meter. How much is the flux through this surface? If the electric field is making an angle 30 degrees with respect to the surface here, see, 30 degree angle is given. The electric field vector is not now normal to the surface, remember. The electric field vector is at an angle to the surface. Now how will you calculate the flux? That is the question. Electric field value is given here as 100 newtons per coulomb. 100 newtons per coulomb value is given. So all we have to do is to calculate the flux. The angle here is 30 degrees. So we know that the electric flux is E dot dA, which is equal to EA cos theta. But here theta is the angle between E and A. A angle is the normal to the surface. That is, area direction is normal to the surface. The angle between E and that normal is 60 degrees. Why? Because it is 30 with respect to the surface only. Total angle is 90 degrees. So 90 minus 30 is 60. That is the theta angle. So theta is 90 minus 30, that is 60. So we have to use that theta here, because normally when generally we see an angle, we directly substitute and get a wrong answer. It should not do. We have to see what is the angle that we are talking about here and what is the angle that is given in the question. The angle that is given in the question is the electric field angle with respect to the surface, but we need the angle of the electric field with respect to the normal to the surface, because the angle, the direction of area is defined as the normal to the surface, outward normal to the surface. So this outward normal is making an angle 60 degree with the electric field. That is the angle we have to take in this formula. Therefore it is 60 degrees. Area, how much it is? 3 meter radius is circular area, so it is pi r square. R square is 9, so 9 pi. 9 pi is the area. So the flux is therefore electric field 100 newtons per coulomb. So 100 multiplied by 9 pi multiplied by the angle cos of 60. So 900 by cos 60 is 1 by 2. So 900 by 2 is 450. So 450 into pi we can directly write. That is the flux in this case. Or you will get some 1400 something, right? If you do the 3.142. Right. Next problem we see. Consider a positive charge at the center of a cube of 30 microcoulomb. Here the charge is covered by a cubical surface. So far we have discussed spherical and circular. This is a cube. In the first case the surface was sphere because it was a point charge. We covered it with a spherical surface to calculate the flux. Next case was the electric field direction was an angle to a circular surface. Here we have a cubical surface. So inside there is a charge. Charge is plus. There is positive charge of 30 microcoulomb magnitude. So very simple, this is the flux is nothing but the charge enclosed divided by the constant epsilon naught. The charge is given as 30 microcoulomb, so 30 into 10 power minus 6 divided by the constant 8.85 into 10 power minus 12. So the total flux that is coming out of this cubical surface will be therefore 3.39 into 10 power 6 voltmeter. Right, so that is the flux. The flux depends on the charge enclosed inside. Right, in the previous problem, suppose they are asking you what is the flux through any one of the faces of the cube. Any one face of the cube, what is the flux? If they ask that question, how will you answer? It's very simple. There are how many faces here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 faces in a cube. Through the 6 faces, total flux that is coming out is what we calculated, that is 3.39 into 10 power 6. Therefore, through any one of the 6 faces, 1/6 of the flux will come out because it is symmetric to all the surface, equally symmetric. So through any one surface of the cube, therefore 1/6 of the total flux will come out. Therefore the previous answer divided by 6, you will get flux through any one of the 6 faces of the cube. Right, so it is 1/6 is 0.57 into 10 power 6 voltmeter. Not volt per meter, voltmeter. Volt per meter is a unit for electric field again. Later we will understand, when we do potential, you will understand V per meter is unit for electric field. Volt into meter is unit for flux. So flux through one phase, 5 phase, is equal to 0.57 into 10 power 6 voltmeter. Right, let's do another problem on this flux. That is, consider a cube of 3 meter edge. Cube edge is 3 meter. The direction of E is as shown. What is the net electric flux through the cube? So this question is, what is this question actually? There is a cube. It is placed in an electric field. So first of all, there is an electric field like this, let us say, pointing upwards. Electric field is pointing upwards. You are bringing a cube and placing the cube like this. That is, you are placing the cube like this, so that the bottom face and the top face, the bottom face and top face of the cube, they are perpendicular to the electric field direction. That is how it is given. Now what about the other faces? They are parallel. That is the left face and the right face. And the front and the back. So out of the 6 faces of the cube, 4 faces are parallel to the direction of the electric field E. 2 faces are perpendicular. Now what is the flux they are asking? Now first and foremost thing we have to understand is, our flux definition phi is E dot dA, or simply E A cos theta. Now when the faces are parallel, that is the area is parallel to the electric field, cos theta is cos 0. Therefore, the flux is 0. EA into 0. So, flux is 0. So, for the 4 faces, that is the 2 front and back face, the left and right faces, all the 4 faces of this cube except the top and the bottom, all are parallel to the direction of the electric field, because the area direction is, the face is parallel. Therefore, the flux through those areas are 0. So here you can see that phi 1, phi 2, phi 3, phi 4, all the 4 faces, the flux is 0. For 5 and 6, the flux is therefore going like this. So outward flux, we say outward normal is the direction, right? So outward flux is considered to be therefore positive, EA. Inward flux is considered to be negative, minus EA. Area is A, same area. Top also area is a square face of area, bottom also same square face. So area is the same, electric field is the same. So the inward flux and the outward flux, they are cancelling each other. So if they ask you net electric flux through the cube, the net electric flux through the cube is whatever has come inside has gone outside. No water is stored in the tank. So the net electric flux is 0. That is how you can remember. Now you can test whether this is correct or not using even Gauss law also. For there to be flux phi, there must be a charge inside. Q enclosed. Q enclosed is QENC by epsilon naught. That is the flux. So since flux is equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught, here Q enclosed is straight away 0. There is no charge inside this cube. Only field is from outside. Outside field is coming into this. So no charge is as such inside this surface. Therefore anyway flux is 0 there. So same result we are getting by 2 arguments. Right. In the next case here, figure shows a cubical volume of edge A in a region where an electric field exists. Here slightly it's a more complicated problem. Electric field is now given as a function of the distance x. The cube is arranged as shown here. X, Y, Z axes are shown here. Now the cube is placed such that 2 faces are perpendicular to the direction of the electric field. The electric field direction is indicated to be from left to right along the positive x direction. So electric field direction is parallel to the positive x direction. 2 faces of the cube are perpendicular to the direction of the electric field, and the remaining 4 faces are parallel again. Now how can we calculate if the electric field E is a function of x? Here E is not a constant number. E is not given as a constant number, it is a function of x. So electric field E is given as ax squared plus b by 2. B by 2 may be some constant. They have not mentioned what is b and all. So E is ax squared. A is what? A is the edge of the cube. Any side of the cube if you take, edge length is A. So what is the amount of charge enclosed in the cubical volume? That is the question that is asked. So they are not telling what is the charge inside, they are asking how much charge is inside for the flux to be like this. That is the question they are asking. So if Q is the charge enclosed in this cube, then we can use Gauss law directly and tell that flux out minus flux in must be equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. Right? So flux out, outgoing flux is through the second phase E2. The area of that is A squared. Square, it's a square area. So E into A we have to do. So E into A is the flux. So flux out is E2 into A squared minus inside flux is E1. That is the flux coming into the first phase from the left. That is E1 into A squared. This must be equal to, if at all there is any charge, that must be equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. So the charge is Q by epsilon naught. We want only Q. So you multiply this to the left side, epsilon naught is a constant, multiplied by area A square is common, so A square you take it out, E2 minus E1. Now E2 is a function of x, E2 varies with x along the x direction, that is the condition they are giving. So we have to just use the E2. E2 is ax squared plus b by 2. For the first phase, E1 it is. Second phase we have taken E2. So at E2 second phase, what is the value of x? Let us say it is x is 0 at the origin. For the first phase, x is equal to a. Along the x direction, we have moved a distance. Then there is the cube. Cube is having another a length, edge length. So the distance for the second phase is at the x-axis, it is at 2a. It is perpendicular to the x-axis at a distance 2a, the plane. So the second plane is therefore having an area a square and the distance is 2a. So x is equal to 2a there. So if you substitute for a and x squared, that is 2a squared, that is you will get 4a squared for that. X square is there in the function, right? X square is x is 2a, so it's 4a square multiplied by another a is 4a cube, so you get 4a cube plus the constant b by 2 is added, so b by 2 minus, so it is e2 over. Now we have to do e1. At e1 x is equal to a only, so in this formula x square is a square multiplied by a, so you have to do a into a square, that is a cube. Minus sign is there, why? Because e2 minus e1, so that minus sign. Again minus, next also b by 2, so minus b by 2. So the constant b by 2 are cancelling, so b by 2 minus b by 2 cancels, so remaining you have 4a cube minus a cube, that is 3a cube. 3a cube is in the bracket, outside there is a square, so it is a power 5. So 3a power 5 multiplied by the constant epsilon naught, that is the charge enclosed in this case. So it is 3 epsilon naught a power 5. That is the result we are getting for this. Right. So next problem is somewhat more complicated. If you understand, it's very simple, but somewhat it's advanced level problem definitely. So what is this problem? Here you can see there is a long straight wire with some charge, linear charge. Already we have studied what is linear charge, so now we know what is this is. Lambda is the linear charge density, that is the charge per unit length, coulomb per meter. Lambda is measured in coulomb per meter units. So in this figure, a long straight wire with the charge density lambda, that is lambda coulomb per meter, is there, and it is at a distance of small r. There is a surface that we are imagining, that is a rectangular surface, are called as rectangular sheet ABCD. It is at a distance r from the charged wire, linear charge. Now what we have to calculate, electric flux that is passing through this sheet. See, here it is not a point charge, here it is a line charge. So what is the electric flux through that sheet kept at a distance r from that wire? This is the question, right? And the area is given as ABCD, rectangular area, length is small l, the width of that rectangular area is W. Now how can we calculate the electric flux in this case? That is the question that is asked. So basically what we can do, first for this we can construct a cylinder, imaginary cylinder around this linear charge, because it has cylindrical symmetry. It is like axis of a cylinder, so you can construct an imaginary cylinder around it, so that even the charged the sheet, the rectangular surface that you want to calculate the flux on, that sheet is inside that cylinder. See, I am enclosing that cylinder and the sheet ABCD is inside, like this. So if you see from the top the same thing, you will have a circle, because top of the cylinder is a circular area, so you have a circle, and the rectangular sheet will appear like a straight line AB. Now the line charge straight wire will appear like a dot from the top. So the electric flux lines or field lines are flowing from the charge like this in all directions uniformly. Right, you are covering the whole thing with a cylindrical thing. Again, if you redraw the diagram here in this bottom, you can see that the distances are, this is at a distance r from the sheet, the line charge is at a distance r from the rectangular sheet. So here you can see that there is r distance, and any line that is starting from the charge will go through the sheet like this. That means throughout the sheet the number of flux lines that is hitting is not uniform because the angle is there. So you can see that through the edge of the sheets A, through the point A and B also, maximum flux is going that side. In between whatever is the total flux we have to calculate now. Right. Any other line going away from that is not going to hit the sheet. They are wasted. So in the previous problem we discussed what is the flux through 1/6 of the cube. So the entire cube is 6 times. So 1/6 is only part of it. So we calculated it by dividing by 1/6. Here the trick is same, but the idea here is we cannot do anything like that because it is not uniform. It is not a cube or anything. So you cannot because the entire sphere we can calculate and see this area alone how much it will receive. That is what we are going to do. So here what we are doing, we can draw this triangle and its hypotenuse is h, and the distance from the center of this circle is small r. Therefore the width also is given as w. Total width is here rectangular area, width is w, length is l. AB is the width, so half of that AB is w by 2. So these 2 points are A and B, the sheet. So it is w by 2. So the hypotenuse is therefore 2 other sides squared you have to and take a square root. So it's r square plus w square by 4 whole root, square root. That is our h, hypotenuse. Now therefore we can define an angle through which the flux is emitted from the cylinder, because it is going to depend on the angle. That angle is theta. The whole angle is theta. But when you draw a triangle like this, 2 triangles are there, therefore the angle of each triangle is theta by 2, theta by 2. So therefore we know the sides and the angle now, so we can write cos theta by 2 is r by h, that is adjacent by hypotenuse. R is, we can write r, and h is, now we know that it is r square divided r square plus w square by 4. So we are dividing r by that factor to get cos theta by 2. So if you want to write theta by 2 alone, what is that angle alone? Then it is cos inverse of r by square root of r square plus w square by 4. Therefore theta, the angle, total angle through which flux is emitted, is theta is equal to 2 into cos inverse of r divided by square root of r square plus w square by 4. So this is how you can understand through what angle the flux is emitted from the wire. Because our sheet is at a distance from the wire, so that how much flux it can capture. It is like let us say you are playing football. You are trying to kick the ball. If there is no net, you can kick the ball in any direction. Any direction you kick, and if it reaches a particular distance, you can call it as a goal. But that will be very easy, right? But if you have a net, then scoring a goal is very difficult. You have to exactly hit the ball through that net. In the same way here, flux is emitted in all directions, but we have to capture flux only on the sheet. How much is received by this rectangular area? It is like a net. In that area, how much flux you are receiving, that we have to calculate. That is what we are doing in this problem. So total flux from the wire is radial direction. Radial means radius of the cylinder direction, equally in all directions like this, of length L. What is this L here? The flux from the wire. So it is phi t. If it is a total flux, phi t, that is going to be equal to the charge enclosed inside, that is Q, divided by epsilon naught. This is based on the Gauss law. flux is equal to charge enclosed by epsilon naught. But what is the charge here? Line charge. So the length of the wire is L, the linear charge density is lambda, so Q is lambda times L, because lambda is defined as Q by L. So Q is lambda into L divided by epsilon naught. That is the total flux. But we are not getting total flux, we are getting only portion of the flux, because flux is in all directions, but we are capturing it in only one direction, how much flux. So that flux is a function of how much theta you have. So the flux through the rectangular area ABCD is called as phi of ABCD, which is equal to the total flux phi of t multiplied by theta by 2 pi. Why? 2 pi is the entire circular direction angle. Total angle possible is 2 pi. Flux is emitted along the 2 pi directions. In that only small theta we are trying to get. So a ratio of theta to 2 pi of the total flux is the flux through the area ABCD. So therefore flux through ABCD is phi t divided by 2 pi into theta. Already we calculated here. Theta from the geometry we have calculated it as 2 times cos inverse r by square root of r square plus w square by 4. So we are substituting that here. Of course, square root of w square by 4 can be taken out as 1 by 2. That goes to numerator as 2. So it becomes cos inverse 2r in the formula while substituting. Remaining is r square by plus w square. Here again there is a small mistake. Here what is a mistake here? I have not written 4 here. 4r square it is. 4r square plus w square. Because here cos inverse theta is what here? Theta is cos inverse r by square root of r square plus w square by 4. So when you take LCM, the denominator, it becomes cos inverse r divided by square root of 4r square plus w square and by 4. When you take it out of the root, it becomes 2. When you take it in numerator, it becomes 2r there. So here it should be 4. Right, so while writing I forgot the 4. So it is 2r divided by 4r square plus w square, and here phi t by 2 pi is lambda L by epsilon naught. So you are substituting that for phi t, total flux. So total flux you are substituting by lambda L by epsilon naught. So it's lambda L by epsilon naught into pi. Of course this 2 pi, here 2 is there, that is cancelling. So what you, because here 2 cos theta is there, theta is 2, right? That 2 also I forgot here. So 2 and this 2 in the theta and this 2 in the denominator are cancelling. So lambda L divided by pi epsilon naught you are getting cos inverse 2r by this. This is the result for flux through the portion of the area. So wherever they are giving, you have to involve the geometry of that area and see how much flux it is receiving from the whole flux. Because symmetry will be like that, that if your wire is given and they are asking what is the flux through the cylindrical area, then it's easy for you, right? Because you will know, you will cover that with a cylinder and then you will be receiving the flux, and the curved surface area of the cylinder you will take total flux. But here it is not the case, right? Therefore here it becomes a bit more complicated to calculate this thing, right? The next problem is electric flux through a circular disk due to a point charge. That is, you have a point charge somewhere here and you are keeping a circular disk at a distance. You want to measure how much flux is received by that circular disk. Yesterday we calculated electric field due to a circular disk at a point. Here it is the reverse, something like that. Due to a point charge, what is the flux received by a circular disk? It is exact opposite of what we discussed yesterday. This is right. Here you can see that in the circular disk also I have constructed a ring, same technique that we used yesterday. So you can construct a circular ring, and a ring of area 2 pi x dx, because it is at a distance x from the center of the disk. The ring is at a distance x and the ring has a thickness of dx. So the area of the ring is going to be 2 pi x dx. That is called elemental area ds. Now, the electric field due to a point charge at a distance, what is the distance? The distance is L. L distance from the point charge is, if it is x on this side, it is kq by L square plus x square, because the hypotenuse here is square root of L square plus x square. Square of that is r square, that is kq by r square is kq divided by L square plus x square. Right. Therefore, now you are calculating flux received by this ring alone. Then you can integrate it to get the flux received by the disk. That is the technique that we are using. So, electric flux through the elemental ring is therefore d phi. It is only a portion of the flux. Total flux is received by the entire disk. That is d phi is equal to E ds cos theta, because flux is E into area. Area here is taken to be elemental area ds. So, E ds cos theta. That E alone is kq by L square plus x square. So, you are substituting kq divided by L square plus x square. Multiply that by the area 2 pi x dx, and cos theta is here. Theta is defined here, you see. Theta is from the charge, the angle is defined. That is going to be L by square root of L square by L square plus x square. That is adjacent side L divided by the hypotenuse. Right. Now this is d phi. Again you can rearrange this as this. That is q into L. This 2 pi and this thing is there. So you will get 2 epsilon naught in the bottom. That is k also is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, right? So 4 pi and 2 pi will cancel. So you will get 2 term, 2 epsilon naught. So you are getting 2 epsilon naught here. Numerator ql is there, ql. 2 pi already cancelled, x dx remains, so x dx. Denominator you have L square plus x square power 1 and L square plus x square power half. So 1 plus half is 1 and half, that is 3 by 2. So x square plus L square power 3 by 2. This is d phi. You have to calculate phi by integrating this. So phi is equal to integral of d phi, which is equal to ql by 2 epsilon naught is a constant. So you have taken it out. Integration is from 0, that is the center, to the radius r, that is a whole disk. So 0 to r you have to do. X is varying from 0 to r. So 0 to r integration of x dx divided by L square plus x square power 3 by 2. Again, yesterday we discussed integration how to do for these cases. We have to do substitution of some trigonometric functions. Here also you can see what is x and try to do this integral. I am not doing that step. I am skipping and directly writing the result. If you integrate this, you will get minus 1 divided by square root of L square plus x square. This is the integration of x dx divided by L square plus x square power 3 by 2. Here you can substitute upper limit r and lower limit 0 for x. If you substitute and take L inside, you will get 1, because first if you substitute limit 0, let us say, minus of that, because there is a minus symbol. Lower limit you have to apply another minus. So minus of minus will become plus. 1 by square root of L square you will have x is 0. And L if you take inside, L by L becomes 1. So you have 1 first. Minus. The next one is r you are substituting. So if you substitute r, it is L divided by L square plus r square, because L is taken inside. So q by 2 pi epsilon naught into 1 minus L divided by square root of L square plus r square is the flux through that circular disk. This is how you can calculate even electric flux through complicated areas. So one can imagine problems ranging from a simple electric flux through a simple circular area to a cubical area to, of course, a cylinder, and all other geometries are possible, and you can have such geometries also, right? This is how, depending on what is the thing of, we have to construct and try to work out the flux. So basic formula everywhere is simple. Phi is equal to q by epsilon naught only, or phi is equal to E into dA. These are the two formulas we have to connect and try to work out. The next problem is a very simple direct problem. These problems are also straightforward, testing the memory actually, whether you are remembering the formula and whether you are able to apply it or not. Here you can see that a uniform electric field E is 8000 Newton per Coulomb. That is the value of the electric field magnitude. It is passing through a flat square area. Area is given as 10 meters squared. What is the electric flux? Straightforward question this is. Because here you can see that the angle is 0 because it is perpendicular exactly. So if theta is 0, then EA cos 0 is EA. So phi is directly therefore product of electric field and area. So electric field is 8000, area is 10, so you will get 8000 into 10, 80,000, which can be written as 8 into 10 power 4. Flux unit here is written as Newton meter square by Coulomb. You can verify this whether you are getting or not. How can you verify? You know the units for electric field, you know the units for area, so if you substitute, you will get it. Because in terms of charge also you know electric field units, how can you write? K units are K into Q squared by Q by distance square, right? So there also you know how to get it. So if you do that, this is also another unit for flux. From our Coulomb's law this is. Right. So this is that. And there is another problem here, which is a solid ball with 0.5 meter radius has a charge of 10 microcoulomb at its center. If the charge is at the center of the solid ball, determine the electric flux passing through the solid ball. How much is the flux that is coming out of the solid ball? Again, spherical symmetry is there, so straightforward problem. What is this? Radius is given as 0.5 meter. Charge is given as 10 microcoulomb, so 10 into 10 power minus 6. So the electric field, one can easily calculate, is equal to kq square divided by the r square. So if you do that, you will get 9 into 10 power 9 for k multiplied by the charge square is 10 power minus 5. Oh sorry, here kq square, what is kq? It is kq by r square, right? So I have written kq square, it's not kq square, it's kq only. So here also I have written q square first and then cancel it. The formula it is remaining, it is also, you have to correct it. So it is kq by r square, right? So k into q into r square, if you do, it is 36 into 10 power 4 you will get. That is 1/4 here, 0.25. If you multiply, you will get 36 in the numerator. 10 power 9 and 10 power minus 5 will cancel, you will get 10 power 4. So you can write the same thing as 3.6 into 10 power 5. This is the electric field. So you have calculated the electric field. Then next step is area. Area is what? How much is area? It's a surface area, spherical surface area. So it's 4 pi r square. It's a sphere surface. So 4 pi r square. It is 3.14 meter square you are getting. Flux is therefore E into A, because angle is normal at every point, so it's 0. EA cos theta, EA cos 0, so it's EA. So E is 3.6 into 10 power 5, area is 3.14 meter square. If you multiply, you will get the total flux. That is phi is equal to 1.13 into 10 power 6 Newton meter square per coulomb. This is also another unit I told already for flux. So this is how one can handle the problems in flux. So today we have not done any problem on Gauss's law. Remember this, we have used that idea, but we have not done any direct problems on Gauss's law. Tomorrow's class we will do all problems on Gauss's law also. Okay, so I'll stop here today. Tomorrow I think same time, so we can again meet at the same time.